tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Coming out of the meditation on loving kindness and prayers sending loving kindness and compassion to beings in various places, in various states, we can feel different ways that loving kindness manifests in practice and really grows as a set of both states and understandings in the heart. Loving kindness, along with all of the brahmavihāras, the divine abidings, loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, equanimity. All of these emotional, wholesome, variations of love operate on several different levels in practice. On a basic level, they turn the heart toward these, wholesome emotions, expressions of kindness. And in doing so, they help us, substitute wholesome thoughts and feelings for unwholesome thoughts and feelings, as when we bring Mettā in as an antidote to a hindrance, or to one of the great poisons. And in doing this, using Mettā to cultivate these basic, beautiful emotions, we're cultivating those states in the heart, and we are beginning to do a kind of emotional healing. Nobody intends to be greedy or hateful or confused in the world. Greed, hatred, and delusion are inherited, they are learned, they are ancient karmic forces moving through us, and really us, like not us as individuals, but moving through us as, the fruiting bodies of the mycelium of our culture and our ancestry and our peoples. So, the great hindrances of our time, racism, sexism, misogyny, various kinds of othering, based on, social characteristics, biological characteristics, perceived characteristics. These, no child is born into the world naturally biased, right? Children are taught bias and hatred and fear. We come in as animals, tender and sensitive to danger. So when we are threatened and put in danger as children, we learn to be afraid in a very direct, somatic, biological way. But we have to be taught to be afraid of concepts. And so loving kindness, particularly if you know the style of loving kindness where you address, the groups of people in the world in categories, beginning with those that we love easily and benefactors, and then good friends, and moving outward toward neutral people, and then difficult people, and then various classes of beings, near and far, known and unknown. Animals of different kinds, humans of different kinds, spirit beings of different kinds. This is a style of practice that understands that the heart needs to be trained to be open to across lines of difference. We actually have to learn how to love people that we don't have a familial or other, bond of intimacy with. And so the transition from the benefactor and the good friend and the self to the neutral person in the sequence of metta categories is one of the most radical turns in practice, right? It proposes to the heart that love can be more than a personal preference based emotion. That you can love folks that you don't know, and that you can love folks even that you dislike or fear. And so then this becomes a training to heal from these inherited terrible karmas that are the source of so much oppression and harm in our world. And so we begin to train the heart to feel across difference, which really means feeling across the boundary that creates so much of our sense of who we are and how we are in the world, which is the boundary of preference, right? In Pali, vedanā, the basic affect of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, giving rise to the fundamental reactivity in the heart of I like it, I don't like it, or I don't notice it. Preference in this way shapes everything that we do in the world, and who we are, who we feel like we belong to, and who we feel like we are oppressed by or distant from. By teaching us to extend loving kindness and compassion to the neutral person and the stranger and the difficult person, Mettā invites us to do something different with vedanā, with the natural perception that some things are pleasant and some things are unpleasant. That's just true, to our bodies. Some things feel safe, some things feel dangerous. Some things are comfortable, some things are uncomfortable. Mettā doesn't say to be not discerning and to put ourselves into danger, physical danger, direct danger. But it does say that when the body is protected enough, when we're with safe friends or we're in a safe room, a space, a community, we're protected enough in this moment to be able to relax and to, take the posture of meditation, that we, in that protected space of meditation, we can do this extraordinary gesture of opening the heart to that which is difficult in the world, that which we do not naturally like. And so this becomes the seed of, I think, a beautiful maturing in the heart. Right? That the mature heart knows what preference is and does and feels like, but doesn't define itself by that preference. Doesn't say, because I am like this, therefore I think this about these other people. This is an extraordinary skill in a time of intense partisan political division as we find ourselves in the United States right now and in our world right now. It's a beautiful practice for a time where the politics and power structures around identity are very, very strong and very harmful in a very real way. It's important, again, to make a distinction between the very real harm that bias and oppression cause and the necessity to have good boundaries and appropriate protection in relation to them, and the different kind of protection that loving kindness is. Loving kindness is really a protection of the heart on the spirit level, protecting the heart from the toxin of hatred. There's a beautiful episode of so there's a podcast called The Emerald that some of you may know, created by a practitioner and teacher named Josh Schrei, mostly teaching animist perspectives on the world. And but he has a very strong Buddhist background. His parents were Buddhist meditators. He was raised in close to Buddhist systems. He's done quite a bit of Tibetan practice. And so he's fairly fluent in Buddhist ideas and discourses. And he did a beautiful episode recently on mindfulness and why mindfulness isn't enough. And he's really coming from a very strongly animist and ritual and ancestor honoring and earth honoring perspective, and talking about the very modern, postmodern roots of mindfulness in the colonial reinterpretation of this ancient tradition, and how how Theravada practice at its roots was deeply animist, and it is, and we've spoken to this many times here. But one of the stories that he tells in it is he describes an ancient Tibetan commentary on how loving kindness, Mettā, is used to subdue rampaging elephants, so to keep one safe in a very wild forest. And the description is that one has to be able to, first, enter into the kind of samadhi, the kind of stabilized heart-mind state where loving kindness can be deeply stabilized, can be, radiated relatively infinitely, but also where one can is stable enough in samadhi to come into contact with beings in the subtle realms, beings in the spirit realms, and that when there's a rampaging elephant, which is quite dangerous for practitioners living unprotected in the forest, the instruction is to enter samadhi and then reach out with one's loving kindness and intention to contact not the elephant themselves, but the elephant's spirit guardians. And so to contact the relevant nature deities that swirl around the elephant and that guard the elephant, and to talk to them and send loving kindness to them, and then they will communicate with the elephant and turn it aside on its path and protect the one sending loving kindness to them. And the commentary is very clear that unskilled meditators who think that you just send loving kindness directly to the elephant, it says, many unskilled meditators have been killed by rampaging elephants thinking that they could just send loving kindness to the elephant without realizing that you have to actually contact the spirit protectors actually as intermediaries. So that's one perspective. But it speaks to Mettā, loving kindness, being not just an individual meditation on learning how to love all beings beyond your own preferences, but really a deep rooted protection practice, rooted in contact with others, rooted in a deep relationality in place, in this very place where you find yourself. Who are the spirit beings near you here? And this is the origin of loving kindness practice. The Buddha sends a bunch of monks into a very dense forest thicket of an area of the forest said to be haunted. That just means there's beings there who need to be related with carefully, and the monks don't know how to relate to the beings there, and they keep getting scared, and the spirits that are there keep harassing the monks to get them to go away. the Buddha teaches the monks the practice of loving kindness, radiating love to all beings. So the monks go back and they do it. But they're not just purifying their own hearts and minds. They're not just recovering from their own traumas of disconnection. They are making contact in a more skillful way. They're communicating in a more skillful way with the spirits that are there. And it works, and the spirits of that forest grove begin to protect them rather than harass them. So there's this first individual psychological level where loving kindness and the process of extending loving kindness across the border, the great tribal border of difference, is a healing for the heart, and it starts to be a healing for us in community. And then it can become this kind of healing or communicative contact across the boundaries of species, and even across the boundary of the form and formless realms of beings. So in the Perfection of Wisdom, in 8,000 lines that we've been reading for some time now, it describes the meditation that bodhisattvas do as, as being as being the brahmavihāras. So I'm just looking for a passage for you. So this is the beginning of chapter 25. The Bodhisattva Subhuti says, is asking the Buddha about how a bodhisattva trains in all knowledge, sarvajnana, all knowledge, and that how. And the question, same as throughout the text, is how does the bodhisattva train in something if they already understand that all dharmas are empty? How do you train in something that's not there, essentially? And they talk about suchness, The Buddha says the suchness of the Tathagata. So the Tathagata is the Buddha himself or themself, the one thus gone. The suchness is like things as they are. So the things as they are nature, the being nature of Tathagatas, Buddhas. The suchness of the Tathagata, which is the prime cause of the Tathagata being a Tathagata. That's mysterious, but just let that float for a moment. Is that now produced or stopped or born? Does it become or cease to become? Does it become like space? Does it become of the nature of dharma? So the quality of suchness, the quality of things being as they are, is that quality itself produced or born? Does it arise? How does it arise? If you've been with this inquiry through the text, you know that, of course, the answer is that it doesn't arise. It's not born. It's not a thing, right? Therefore, it can't be attained. So Subhuti says no. And the Buddha says, does that suchness then enter nirvana? No. So here then the Buddha says, therefore then Subhuti, a bodhisattva who trains themselves thus, they train in the conviction that, quote, suchness does not get extinct. Suchness is the word tathata. It's like things as it is or things as they are. And things being as they are, that suchness or thusness, that does not itself enter nirvana or attain cessation. But this bit, I'm getting toward the bit about Mettā that I want to say. So the bodhisattva trains in such does not get extinct. When they train thus, they will reach the perfection of all training. They cannot be crushed by Mara or by Mara's associates or by Mara's host. Soon they shall reach the condition of irreversibility. Soon they shall sit on the terrace of enlightenment. They course in their own range. They are trained in the dharmas which make them into a savior. In the great friendliness, the great compassion, the great sympathetic joy, the great impartiality. So there's the brahmavihāras. The bodhisattva is sitting on the terrace of enlightenment, coursing in their own range, meaning like they're doing the appropriate activity of bodhisattvas. They are trained in the dharmas which make them into a savior. So what are those dharmas that make one into a savior, or one who can serve all beings? The great Mettā, the great karuna, the great mudita, the great upekkha, the great compassion, sympathetic joy, impartiality. It goes on from there. So this recurs, again and again in the text. We started with thinking about the meditation on emptiness as being a kind of peace, the peace of absence, the peace of that which resting in the absence of that which is not actually here. So things being like illusions, suffering is also illusory. And so then you can rest in the peace of the absence of suffering, seeing it for what it is, seeing the suchness of this moment as being free of suffering. Even free of the suffering of fixating the notion of suchness, the concept of suchness. So that resting in emptiness is the primary meditation of bodhisattvas. But here we get this different turn. And this is really, if emptiness is resting in the absence of things, the brahmavihāras are the resting in a certain kind of fullness, right? Because loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity are states of fullness of heart. But in the meditation, right, they are not just healings in relation to difference. They start there, healings of our own emotional intelligence, but they become meditations that are boundaryless. They become nondual. Right? This is the intent of loving kindness. When the text says, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. This radiating in a kind of 360 sort of somatic fullness, it's embodied, right? There's direction. There's a kind of very extraordinary presence to it, and it has a quality, right? It's not pure awareness in that sort of qualitylessness. It's love, but it's love without distinction between beings. And if you don't make any distinction between beings, you can't have a distinction within the realm of space. So there's the sense that it's infinitely spacious and infinitely accepting of all kinds of beings. And so then it becomes non-dual, right? You and all beings and all of space are subsumed in this one quality that is benevolence, or this one quality that is compassion. Remember, all the way back to the beginning of the text, this is how bodhisattvas save all beings, is they have the kind of compassion that radiates across the world in a limitless way, but they also have the kind of wisdom that understands that there's no such thing really as separate beings, including the separateness of themselves and the ones that they are in service to. So bodhisattvas save all beings by understanding that there are no other beings to be saved. And so here we get the fullness side of bodhisattva activity, which is that they rest in the infinite nature of the brahmavihāra meditations. They rest in loving kindness, compassion, appreciation, and equanimity as boundless qualities. So this spectrum then, to finish here, the spectrum actually, I was talking with a friend about this the other day on our way driving up the coast to go on a mushroom foraging walk. We found beautiful matsutakes and some chanterelles, and it's a good time for mushrooms right now. So that was really joyful. And on the way up, the kids were chattering in the back seat, and my friend and I got to talk about meditation. And as we were driving up, and we got on to talking a bit about non-dual meditations, and really feeling into together how we were kind of talking about the difference between, meditations that use the concept of the non-dual or the infinite as a doorway into deep letting go, the way that can be, if done in an immature way, a doorway into a kind of spiritual bypass, but also the way that those instructions, like the instruction to accept everything as it is, works both as a doorway to a very, very spacious mind state, but also as a kind of ground level, emotional healing of like, just don't be in so much resistance and reactivity, right? So you can use the same instruction. Everything is as it is. This is the instruction towards suchness, tathata, the meditation on suchness. Everything is as it is. This points to a kind of radical acceptance. This points to equanimity. But when our practice is just growing in maturity, which for most of us it is for a very long time, what this makes us do is wrestle with our preferences, wrestle with the way that I don't like some things that are happening. I don't like the political situation. I don't like my health situation. I wildly stubbed my toe yesterday morning dodging a tennis ball in my front hallway, and I think I probably fractured my toe, so I've been limping for 2 days. So I don't like that, right? Not comfortable. I'm glad it happened after the mushroom walk and not before. But things being as they are, that's how it is, right? And so in a very basic way, the non-dual instruction that everything is as it is, everything is of the nature of suchness. In a very basic way, it helps me deal with my preferences, deal with the fact that there's dukkha, there's things that I just don't like. And so it works on that level, right? It works on this very basic emotional, patience, tolerance, window of tolerance kind of level. But then as I mature in practice, everything is as it is becomes a doorway for me to really engage with the deeper kind of substrate of my experience, right? The experience of the sense of self and the different kinds of identity and the story of my life and my family and my place and my being, my worldviews. And I can see like, oh, everything is as it is. Like, oh yeah, I inherited this racial bias. I inherited this fear of the other. Where did it come from? Everything is as it is. I'm embedded in systems of relationality and karma. But then the instruction keeps going, and it goes all the way to this kind of meditation that's beyond all distinction. And the thing I want to emphasize about that as we close is that the non-dual instructions, whether they're pure awareness instructions or brahmavihāra type instructions, they require samadhi. They require access to meditative states where you can actually feel the infiniteness and the unboundariedness of the quality being pointed to. And that without that, they work on other levels. They work on the emotional healing level. But to just be careful around taking any non-dual instruction, including infinite metta, as a concept. If we take it purely as a concept, and we can fall into this very easily, it starts to have a kind of bypass sort of element. Everything is fundamentally as it is. That can suggest that no action is needed, right? That only deep acceptance is needed. But that's actually wrong acceptance. Acceptance is the acceptance that things are as they are. So I need to learn to not be in resistance to what is. But that's only the first step. And having come to that basic acceptance, then I'm in a less diluted relationship to how things are. And then I have agency. Then there's cultivation. Things are as they are. There's some hatred in my heart, right? That's not to be tolerated, but it's to be accepted as what's real. And now I do the practices of cultivating loving kindness, cultivating the paramis, cultivating patience and tolerance. And only when we've cultivated the heart that can bear discomfort and that can rest in a kind of inner peace through setting down narratives, coming to deactivation from highly activated sympathetic processes. Those things that are the building blocks of samadhi, deep rest, the ability to let go. Through that and through resting in samadhi, the states of mettā and the brahmavihāras and emptiness can finally, only through samadhi, become truly limitless or boundaryless. And so then it's in samadhi that the nondual is contacted. And it can become a kind of insight that permeates non-samadhi, that permeates the rest of life. But I think it has to be contacted in order for it to really take root in a non-diluted kind of way. It has to be contacted through states of extraordinary stillness. Otherwise, we're not really seeing boundarylessness. Boundarylessness and non-distinction is a very compelling concept. But as a meditation, it's not what we think it is. And so then the encouragement here, and throughout the perfection of wisdom, is to understand that bodhisattvas rest in an extraordinary mind state. And that they know something about not just the idea of non-separation, but the transformation that comes to the heart when you rest in states of perceptual non-separation for a sustained period of time. So bodhisattvas love samadhi. They rest in samadhi. And they learn from it how to hold all beings with wisdom and right view. And so it is in doing that that they radiate love over the entire world. And it's through doing that that they save all beings. So, I'm pausing there for now. Thank you for reflecting in this direction with me.